Hello everyone, today we'll be seeing how fast or how slow Bidoof can beat Pokemon Platinum in a solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the video. Earlier in the week, we played through Pokemon Platinum with Starly, and just as you'd expect from a first stage Pokemon, things did not go amazingly well. We had to do a lot of planning for the endgame on stream. But today though, we're going to be playing the other Route 201 Pokemon, Bidoof. I do think Bidoof in some ways is going to be better than Starly, but in other ways it's going to be worse. But first, let's go over the stats. We have 59 HP, 45 attack, 40 defense, 35 special attack, 40 special defense, and 31 speed. That is horrendously slow. And unlike Starly, where it was in the medium slow level up group, we are in the medium fast level up group, so we're going to have a leveling disadvantage for sure. Obviously, since we're using a Pokemon that only starts with Tackle and Growl, we're going to need a lot of training to deal with the first gym leader, Roark. But you may be thinking, what level are we going to need to be able to beat him? Well, usually in order to figure that out, we have to look at the rest of our level up moves. At level 9 we get Defense Curl, and then 13 we get Rollout. Theoretically, we could use the Defense Curl Rollout strategy to do major damage, but one of the problems is that the Geodude and the Onix both resist rock moves. This would work on the Cranidos, but I think we're going to die by the time that happens. At level 17 though, we do get Headbutt. I think going up to Headbutt for damage and potential flinch chances is going to have to be our best bet. At level 21 we get Hyper Fang, which is actually just a clone of Headbutt, slightly stronger but less accurate. And then we get Yawn, Amnesia, which could see some use, Takedown, Super Fang, Super Power, and Curse. At least in terms of boosting our defensive stats, we don't need to worry too much, but as you can see right now, we really don't have a way to boost our attacking stats. But, my friend, let me show you the TM set. We actually surprisingly get a lot of coverage. For example, we get the Ice moves, Iron Tail, Thunderbolt Thunder, Shadow Ball, Shockwave, Rest, Attract, Thief, Charge Beam if we want special attack, which we do not. And then we also get Natural Gift in case we need a one-time physical hidden power, as well as Grass Knot, Pluck, and Rock Smash. This is definitely a clone of the Rattata line from the Kanto region because Bidoof also gets Hyper Fang just like Rattata, in addition to all the special moves that it could never want. And as we fight the early game trainers and pretty much kill anything that's alive just to get the levels needed for Roark, let's go over our nature, ability, and hidden power typing. Our nature is going to be adamant today, so it's going to be plus attack minus special attack. I was originally thinking of the Jolly nature, but our speed is so low, I don't think Jolly is going to be that meaningful at all. And our ability, which I thought was going to be great, Simple. What this ability does is it doubles the effects of your stat modifiers. So essentially +1 in your attack is +2, but -2 in defense is -4 when it comes to stat calculation. So technically, if we were to get our attack stat to +3, we can't really go any higher than that. I mean, we could, but it wouldn't do anything. So if we were to use Curse, 3 curses would give us maxed out attack, defense, and minimized speed. And just like with the Chandelure video from a couple of weeks ago, this Platinum run was done on the new and improved Super Shucky emulator, made by Snowy. This emulator can run DS games on 4 times speed at a clean, rough 240 frames per second. It could occasionally drop to 220, but this runs way better than BizHawk ever could. So expect some clear quality footage in Platinum from now on as well. And funnily enough, since the TM for Return is the first TM we can get in this game, you can actually see my Return's effective power on the overlay under the level actually come in use, because right now inside the trainer school, it has an effective power of 34. Mind you, this does not take into account the same type attack bonus. But essentially, as soon as this number gets over 35, I will teach Return in the place of Tackle. But then of course, there's the harder part, which I actually need to remember to teach the move. But whoops, oh well. And also, I just want to mention this fact, I've been having crashing problems with Pokebite with Pokemon Platinum specifically, And during this run, whenever I reset, I had to unload and reload the mapper so many times. It just kept happening over and over again. So if you ever see me reset not doing anything, or if the overlay's frozen, that's why. I did get it fixed though before the Starly stream earlier this week, which is definitely going to be a lot because the rival fight actually took me 4 blackouts to actually win. At least I have return and tackle at this point. I should have taught it earlier, but hey, better late than never. And as soon as we enter the Orberg gate, we are given the HM for Rock Smash. You may think this is a great idea for Roark. It absolutely is not. It may seem like that in the short term, but I've actually planned out my moveset for a decent chunk of the early to mid game before we ever get access to the move deleter in Canalave City. We legitimately have no room for this. Some later fights are going to get absolutely screwed up if I teach Rock Smash right now, so we are not going to do it. Technically speaking, the only other way of getting rid of an HM move is putting the move in slot 4, deposit it in the daycare, and have it go up a couple of levels to where it would naturally learn a move. But I'm not going to allow myself to do that in these runs. I mean, this is a Pokemon solo run, not a Tamagotchi. I do a bunch of training on Route 207 to the north of Orberg City. This grass has Ponyta, which give very decent XP yields. Level 5s can give over 100. And then there's also Machops here, which are good for attack EVs. I purposefully do not fight the Geodudes because they'll just take too long. You know, something I should have done to make this faster is actually catch a Machop and trade it for an Abra in this town, so that way I can get some teleport action. It's very helpful to use teleport if you're going to be fighting a lot of trainers, but I unfortunately didn't think of that at the moment. But as soon as I get to level 17 and learn Headbutt, we can go take on the first gym leader of Sinnoh, Roark. I not only enter this fight with Headbutt, but I also enter with the Quick Claw held item. Roark leads off with Geodude, and it looks like Headbutt is going to be a 6-shot, potentially a 7-shot if things go wrong, but it's not like it's going to matter though if he has potions. The main plan is to hopefully get lucky with some flinches, and I do actually defeat his Geodude, but I only end up with 2 HP remaining, and obviously this isn't going to work out too well, so I go ahead and take a blackout. I honestly wonder if I should have used a couple of defense curls first. That probably would have been a better idea, but like I said, I didn't think about that at the time. On the second attempt though, I actually did finally realize it, so I go ahead and just use 3 defense curls, and I do experiment using rollout, and I'm actually able to knock out the Geodude on the 3rd rollout with a crit, and then the 4th rollout actually does a lot to the Onix, and the 5th one knocks out the Onix. Okay. Then on the Cranidos, it outspeeds me, hits me with Headbutt, doesn't flinch, I get a Quick Claw activation, I go for return like an idiot, and then the Cranidos kills me. That was probably my best chance of getting a lucky win, and I just completely blew it. On my 4th attempt at Roark, I'm able to get back to his Cranidos, knock it out, and get myself the Coal Badge. The next destination we have is to head to Eterna City to go fight Gardenia. But obviously, before we can fight Gardenia, we have to go to the Valley Windworks and fight Mars. Mars is generally a pretty terrifying trainer in general, mainly because her Zubat can use Toxic on you, and the Purugly in general is just a terrifying beast. I was torn on whether using the Pecha Berry or the Quick Claw was better, but I just stick with the Quick Claw for now. I actually outspeed the Zubat, but it actually survived a Headbutt, and because of that, I get hit with Toxic. Then at level 21, I get the opportunity to learn a very potentially useful move, Hyper Fang. In the end though, I did decide not to teach it because I want all of my moves. Then on the Purugly, I end up doing massive damage thanks to a Headbutt critical hit, but the Toxic is able to knock me out. On the second attempt, as soon as I get to the Purugly, I had the smart idea of actually using a defense curl on it because all of its moves are physical. And as soon as I do that, I have more than enough HP to knock out her Purugly and beat her. I fight all of the trainers leading up to the Eterna Forest, as well as all the trainers inside the Eterna Forest. Then at the very end, I can enter Eterna City. And I'm also so desperate for experience that I actually choose to fight the trainer with 6 Magikarp. Yes, his experience is very bad, but at least his team gives 6 Speed EVs, so that'll help with my goals. And while doing more training to the east of Eterna City, I try to fight this one hiker with an Onix, and obviously things don't go very well. I do come back and beat him on the second attempt, and as soon as I clear out the rest of the trainers, I feel comfortable giving Gardenia a try. She leads off with Turtwig. I go ahead and use Yawn on it to put it to sleep, and while it's sleeping, I'm going to go ahead and set up some defense curls. It's not going to help with Magical Leaf, but it should help with other moves. My plan is to try and sweep as much of her team as possible with Rollout, and by using Rollout, I am able to get to the Roserade by the time it wears out. Then I decide to go for Yawn, and then right before it could go to sleep, I end up getting a critical hit from Magical Leaf and I die. Surprisingly, this strategy works pretty well, and it only took me 3 tries to actually beat her. And if you guys thought the Mars fight is hard, the Jupiter fight here can be hard, but arguably her Zubat is even worse because it has Giga Drain instead of Toxic, which, believe it or not, I am not actually terrified of Giga Drain from that thing. And then I set my Rollout up on it, and the Skunk Tank does hit me with a Smoke Screen, then a critical hit Night Slash, and then look at that, a regular Night Slash does less than 20 damage, so that crit 100% mattered. But to be fair, Smoke Screen also did matter too. Just like with Mars, all it took was winning on the second try. This Pokemon is the king of second tries. Or queen, sorry, I only run queens in this game. Unless it's a Hitmonchan or something, or a Metagross. Before heading down Cycling Road, I enter the old chateau, get myself a rare candy, and the TM for Substitute. Substitute is going to have a major use for the next gym fight coming up next. As soon as I head down Cycling Road, I immediately go into the Wayward Cave in the under part of the bridge, and I can go ahead and get myself a rare candy. Normally Pokemon come down here for Earthquake, but this Pokemon cannot learn it. It's kind of unfortunate that it doesn't, but the rare candy will do. Obviously, we're going to need almost every rare candy in the game because, duh, we're running a Bidoof. And even though I am overleveled, I am still going to get occasional blackouts from random hikers, and there's just nothing I can do about it. But eventually, as soon as I make my way to Heart Home City, we can go take on Fantina's gym. One thing I will say though is, I try to avoid her trainers here because I do not want to fight them. But I accidentally encounter 2 separate trainer fights and get 2 blackouts in this gym. And I'm trying to avoid these guys. Going through this gym on faster speeds is quite difficult. Man, what happened to the old days of the crappy Diamond and Pearl puzzle? At least you could easily skip all the trainers. But anyway, Fantina should probably be the easiest fight in this whole building. And that's not even a joke. Fantina leads off with Duskull. I go ahead and use Substitute to block Will-O-Wisp, and it worked. Now I'm going to set up 1 defense curl, it goes for Future Sight, and I start my Rollout sweep. I knock out the Duskull with 2 thanks to a crit, and the Mismagius fails a Confuse Ray, Psybeam breaks the Substitute, and the 4th Rollout kills it, and then the Haunter can go down to the 5th Rollout after failing to confuse me with Confuse Ray. That was legitimately the easiest gym I've had so far. Normally, most Pokemon have a difficult time here, but not Bidoof. What I will mention though, the rival fight when attempting to leave Heart Home City is far more difficult. The Staravia will activate Intimidate right away, it's got Double Team, and it will use Endeavor to put you at very low health, in addition to having Stab Wing Attack and Stab Quick Attack. There really is just nothing you can really do about this fight, you just have to get lucky with Rollout. And like with the other fights, it took a few attempts to beat this rival fight too. Man, the rival's being really hard today. I mean, normally Barry is pretty decent of a rival in this game. The later fights especially can be difficult depending on what Pokemon you're using, especially the fight at the Pokemon League. And then as soon as I beat him inside the Lost Tower, I'm only going to come in here for a second copy of Return. I do plan to unlearn Return at some point, and then I will immediately reteach it. I'm probably just going to stop talking about random trainers at some point. Just remember, this is a Bidoof. Half the fights in this game are either one-shots or I have a good chance of death, so I'm just going to point that out. I will quickly mention though, Ace Trainer Dennis, a absolute freaking nightmare. He took probably 7 resets to beat. Might have been even more than that. The Drifblim is a freaking pain in the butt, especially with Aftermath. And the current gym that I need to fight next is Maylene, the fighting type specialist, and Yeah, I am nowhere close to being ready, so I'm actually going to do a lot of the training towards Pastoria City. I mean, I still wish I remembered to get that Abra, but oh well. Before I make the long trip though, I need to get my vitamin orders in check because I don't want to end up getting a ton of junk EVs. So I'm going to sell a bunch of the high money items I picked up along the way and go buy some vitamins. And today's vitamin of the day is 6 protein. I need all the attack that is possible. We do need speed as well, but we're more likely to get speed EVs off of a random trainer than attack, so investing in the protein is a bigger priority. I fight most of the trainers leading down to Pastoria City, and I realized in Platinum version you actually cannot fight Wake as the 4th gym leader like you could in Diamond and Pearl, because the rival here will actually block the gym. I actually did not know that. Even though we did make it to Pastoria City, we are nowhere close to being done with training. The entirety of Route 212 is right here. This route is incredibly massive. There's probably around 25 trainers on this route, and that's not even a joke. Even if I am not satisfied with the amount of training I've done, I have the Versus Seeker in this game. I can always go back to Route 215 and fight either the Pokelector with the 6 grass types, or the Pokelector with the 3 evolutions. Psych, we're not done training yet. I only went into her gym just to fight some more trainers for experience before I do the Versus Seeker grinding. I will say that was probably unproductive, but either way, I still need more training. I am not ready. Okay, now I'm ready. I just needed Curse on my moveset. That was the reason. I was hoping the trainers in her gym would get me to a high enough level, but they didn't. But I have Curse now, so for realsies, let's go take on Maylene. Maylene leads off with Metatite. It does go for a turn 1 fake out and then hits me with Rock Tomb. I only used 1 curse though, and because of Simple, I have +2 attack, +2 defense, -4 speed. The -4 speed doesn't matter though, but the extra defense and attack boost from Simple does come in handy right now. But like I mentioned before, Simple also doubles the debuffs. So if I get hit with Intimidate, Intimidate is -2 attack. That was another reason the rival fight in Hearthome was even worse than normal. And since I already have Pastoria City on the fly map because I was here before, I can just fly back and fight the rival in front of the gym. This Staravia is going to be the bane of my existence because Intimidate essentially puts me at -2. But since I now have Curse, I can just go ahead and use 1 curse to get myself to +1 attack. Well, technically 2 curses because of the whole Intimidate, but ignore that part. And I can have a much easier time at this fight. But the question is, will it give me an easy time at Crasher Wake because his Gyarados lead is pretty good? Well, there's only one way to find out. Crasher Wake leads off with Gyarados, activating Intimidate to get me to -2, then Waterfall flinches me, followed by a Waterfall crit. Okay, that was a quick reset. Okay, for real this time. I am going to use a Curse. Waterfall doesn't flinch me, thankfully. I just go ahead and use 3 curses. However though, things don't end up going that great because I take way too much damage. Crasher Wake was definitely the most brutal gym leader to plan out during this run. I essentially did almost no planning in this run with the exception of the Victory Road Pokemon League section, so I really had no idea what level to fight Crasher Wake at, and in the end, I ended up using some rare candies to get my Bidoof to level 50, specifically for damage range purposes. On the Gyarados, I can go ahead and use 1 curse, then a 2nd curse, and then I can go ahead and use Return to get rid of it. However though, I am in red health, but for some reason, the Floatzel never went for Aqua Jet. I have no idea why. And then the Quagsire comes out and just wastes its turn with Yawn. So yeah, Crasher Wake literally threw that fight so hard. But I think if he didn't, I could easily have been stuck there for another 30 resets. It was awful. Then inside of Solaceon Town, we gotta do our first battle against Cyrus. He does take a couple of tries, but that's essentially what most of these fights are at this point. And as soon as I finish that guy, I'm actually going to go back to Pastoria City, use a Heart Scale, and relearn the move Amnesia. I'm going to need this move for some fights coming up, so it's going to be very important that I get this right away. And I also fly to Veilstone City and enter the Ruin Maniac Cave and get the Dig TM. I'm actually going to teach the Dig TM in the place of Substitute. I am going to need this move to deal with the Steel type gym, at least for his Magnetons. It's not going to be as useful for the Steelix, but with access to Curse, it should be okay. But obviously, before we take on Byron, we gotta take on the rival again, and his bird that likes to use Intimidate. So I go ahead and use one Curse to get my +2 defense and my attack back to normal. Then the Staraptor just starts going for double team. And then it just kills itself with takedown. That's pretty funny. Then the Heracross hits me with Brick Break doing massive damage. I get a Quick Claw clutch, but it does not matter. The Infernape knocks me out. I do decide to use more rare candies to get to level 57. I'm hoping this is the point where I can start saving my rare candies for, if not the Elite Four, at least for the final Cyrus fight, because I've been using up so many of my rare candies so far, and I am starting to run out. This is Platinum version after all, so I will have access to more rare candies, but it's still annoying. I would like to save them, you know. Alright guys, let's go take on Byron. Byron leads off with Magneton. It hits me with a metal sound, lowering my special defense to -4 essentially. Also, the overlay may look frozen here, but it just took a while to update. And right now, with 2 curses, I have +4 attack, +4 defense, -4 speed, and +4 special defense. Having Amnesia does help at this point as well, because the Magneton does have Thunderbolt. A metal sound in Thunderbolt would devastate the crap out of me. Saturn was easy, Mars was easy. Oh look, we're at the next gym now. Let's go take on Candice. Candice leads off with her Sneasel. I go ahead and use 3 curses to max out my attack stat, and then I use 1 Amnesia as well. This just turns Bidoof into an indestructible tank. Granted, I am glad the Abomasnow missed a Focus Blast. That probably still would have hurt. But then again, Frostlass's Blizzard only did like 30 damage at most. Her whole team was really easy with this setup. Having Amnesia with Curse and Simple is very good, but like I mentioned, all of those fights with Intimidate, up until I got Curse, were really awful to deal with. It's like I had 2 Intimidates. Can you imagine if the rival had 2 Intimidate users? I would get to -4 attack. That would be just, I don't even want to think about it. And now with 7 gyms done, we gotta go clear out the Galactic Hideout in Veilstone City, do our second battle with Cyrus, and then climb Mount Coronet and enter the Distortion world. The Cyrus fight here did take 4 resets just because Bidoof is still pretty slow. Fights are just always going to be inconsistent with this thing. But thankfully, the Saturn fight doesn't provide any problems, and before I start climbing up Mount Coronet, I'm actually going to go to the game corner, exchange a whole bunch of coins because I've been saving up money this entire run, and I'm going to get myself the TM for Rest. When I get into the Pokemon League, I'm going to have the moveset of Return, Curse, Rest, and Amnesia. Obviously, this is a pretty Gen 2-like moveset. Normally you would have Curse, Rest, and Return for the red fight in Crystal, but we're actually going to have this moveset for the Elite Four in Platinum. That is super rare. And thankfully, due to this combo, I can first try the double battle with the Team Galactic Grunts, as well as the multi-battle with Mars and Jupiter. But let's see if this strategy is enough for Cyrus. Cyrus leads off with Houndoom. It does get off a turn 1 Will-O-Wisp, which is pretty annoying. I am going to use Rest to get rid of the burn anyway, but obviously things don't go according to plan because of course they don't. Third try is the charm for this Cyrus fight. Then we can run away from the Giratina and make our way back to the real world and head to Sunyshore. Normally the Volkner fight is an absolute joke, but with Bidoof, who knows at this point? Let's just play his intro and then get to the league. Volkner leads off with his Jolteon. I go ahead and use an Amnesia and then get hit by Thunderwave. That's fine, that was completely expected. I use 2 curses, 1 Amnesia, use Rest to get rid of the paralysis, and at this point I can start the return sweep. I one-shot the Jolteon, get to level 74. Focus Blast doesn't do too much from the Raichu, and then I can use Return on the Electivire. Thunder Punch does put me into red health, so this is getting dangerously close. Then when I get to the Luxray, I actually got the Quick Claw and managed to go to sleep. And looking at the fangs, that absolutely mattered. I'm not going to go into detail every member in Victory Road, but I did get 1 blackout and 7 resets. These fights were pretty rough near the end. But eventually, I do make it to the Pokemon League, and before we fight the final 5 trainers, we gotta go take on the rival in his intimidating Staraptor again. I did go around the region before this and get all of the rare candies, and I get Bidoof to level 81. He leads off of this Staraptor. Close combat does half. Then after using Curse, I do survive another. Then I survive the third. And that's actually pretty great because that allows me to use Rest, and he uses U-turn. Well then, that means later there's going to be an Intimidate user in the fight that's still not dead. And I keep having to just use a Rest chain on the Heracross. This ends up being a pretty decent idea because eventually he will run out of close combats and start using weaker moves. This will allow me to get set up properly. And as soon as I get set up properly, I can defeat the rival on the very first try, which is a surprising rarity for this video. We can go ahead and take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first member of the Elite Four is Aaron, the Bug-type user. He leads off with Yanmega. He U-turns into Heracross, which immediately kills me with close combat. And I looked at the range, that is a guaranteed one-shot. This fight takes an ungodly amount of attempts for the Bug-type Elite Four member. This is probably the best he's ever done in any of my Platinum runs. I essentially just need to get lucky with setting up curses properly, and him just not U-turning into that stupid Heracross. But give it some time. At 63 resets grand total into the run, I am able to defeat Aaron's entire team of bug types. Next up is the ground type Elite Four member Bertha. Bertha leads off with Wishcash. It has special moves and physical moves. Setting up on it won't be too bad. Its offensive stats aren't the greatest. I'm just hoping a +6 return will be enough to one-shot the rest of her Pokemon, but 2-shot the Golem and 2-shot the Rhyperior. I'm not sure about either of those rock types. Then the Hippowdon actually uses Yawn on me before I can get to that point, so I just go ahead and just use a rest ahead of time. But then guess what? The Hippowdon actually gets a critical hit with Earthquake, and because of that critical hit, I have to take a reset. On the second attempt, I am able to get to the Golem, but before I can test the damage ranges with Return, her Golem gets a critical hit on me. I get back to the Golem and does Return one-shot, and the answer is yes, without a crit. That was surprising. Then on the Rhyperior, that is going to be a clean 2-shot after the Citrus Berry. That was actually pretty perfect, and that was her last Pokemon too. Next up is the Fire-type Elite Four member Flint. I do wish I could have Substitute here, but it's not like it's going to matter anyway. I actually underspeed the Houndoom by 2 speed points. That's actually pretty annoying, but it's not the biggest deal in the world, because I do have Rest and Amnesia. If I can just get lucky and not get crit all the time like Bertha somehow managed to do, I should be able to defeat Flint on the first try. And in this run, I do. Next up is the Psychic-type Elite Four member, Lucian. He leads off with Mr. Mime, which is actually a very great setup target because it usually likes to use Reflect and Light Screen, and you can just set up to the max while you wait for it to wear out. And then right at the very last minute, when I go to use Return on the Mr. Mime, it gets a critical hit, causing the Gallade afterwards to knock me out because I can't use Rest in time. Literally, Bidoof's only weakness has just been getting critical hits. Having Curse and Amnesia is a pretty broken combo when you combine it with Rest. I'm just glad that Simple essentially cuts the setup time in half. With Simple, I only really need 2 Amnesias to max out. But let's see how well this combo leads with Cynthia. She leads off with Spiritomb, which Return cannot do anything on, so I'm actually going to get rid of Return, which I've had since the start of the run, and teach Pluck. Essentially, that backup TM of Return was basically useless. I never once used it. But my plan here is just sweep her whole team with Pluck. It's very unfortunate because it turns 1-shots with Return on some of her Pokemon into 2-shots, but the thing is, I have to have something for the Spiritomb. And as soon as I get past the Spiritomb with +6 and everything, and -6 in my speed, I can just spam to Pluck on her entire team. Then when I get to the Garchomp, I can actually snag its Citrus Berry and get some of my health back, which is a neat little bonus, might I add. And also, since it doesn't have the Citrus Berry anymore, it allows it to be a clean 2-shot instead of a guaranteed 3-shot. Then, last up is the Roserade. I can 1-shot it with Pluck, get poisoned, too late for that, and then I can clock in with a real time of 3 hours, 6 minutes, and 50 seconds with 16 blackouts, 67 resets at level 84 with a game time at the Hall of Fame of 10 hours and 2 minutes. The game time when it gets to 10 hours literally crops off of my overlay. That's because I don't really plan for runs to be that long, so I don't really bother to change it because it makes the game time look smaller. This Pokemon I actually thought was going to play pretty dang good, because having access to Simple and Curse and Amnesia, I actually thought was a great combo, but maybe if I did this in a game that didn't have so many Intimidate users, it probably would have been a lot better. I mean, at least Simple Defense Curls helped me with Roark, and it did help with the Mars fight as well, but in general, this run was absolutely terrible. I kind of wonder how Platinum would go with a single Rattata, because even though Rattata doesn't have Simple, if I recall correctly, it does have better stats. If not, I can just put it on screen right now. But we'll probably never know because I do not want to play that Pokemon in this game. But if we take a quick look at the leaderboard, we barely got a time faster than Bulbasaur. It ranked very close to the bottom of my leaderboard. The only Pokemon it outbeat were Bulbasaur, Bastiodon, and Bonsly. And as of doing this voiceover, I don't know if Starly's going to do better because I'm doing that stream later today as soon as I finish recording this. But you'll see in the image. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the backport Pokemon we do on stream, including all the Mega Evolutions, as well as access to members-only content such as re-ranks in my Discord server, as well as unedited playthroughs. I did release the Ninetales unedited playthrough for free as a mistake, but for anyone thinking of being a YouTube member, there's your sneak peek for you. Hope you consider it. But anyway, next week we're going to be going back into Pokemon X. We're going to be playing the game with 2 fairy types, Slurpuff and Aromatisse. Fairy types are incredibly overpowered in Generation 6. I kinda wonder how they'll do in this playthrough. I know those Pokemon are trait evolutions, but other than that, I don't know much about them. But we'll see about that when we get to it. I will see you all in the next video.